Namaste and welcome, Sitaram. Welcome to the Hindu Perspective, coming to you from Trinidad and Tobago. This is a program of the Board of Swaha in which we look at various facets of Hinduism and issues affecting Hindu thought and experience worldwide. Over the last few weeks, we have been discussing institutions of Hinduism. Today, we again continue along this vein, and we are very pleased to have our regular presenters and our senior Pandits, Pandit Balram Prasad and Pandit Gyandevji, who will be leading these sessions. I am Pandit Manidev Prasad, standing in for Pandit Ishwar. Now, today, we are going to be talking to two Pandits, one from Trinidad, their experience, and a young trainee, Pandit Avadhesh Prasad, who is based in Orlando, Florida. In addition, we are going to move our conversation forward in relation to the role of Ramleela in having developed Hinduism from 1845 to now in Trinidad and Tobago, tracing its history with the creation recently also of the National Ramleela Council. We have with us the President of the National Ramleela Council, Mrs. Kamalwatti Ramsubeik, who is on set with us. As we begin, as is customary, I will now invite our senior Pandit Balram Prasad to lead us in prayer.
Thank you very much. Because of the present state of our country, I want to say this prayer, especially our citizens who are undergoing very serious difficulties and who are living in fear and tension. We want the Lord to put a hand because things are getting out of hand. So we pray for peace, for fulfillment, for success, for protection especially. Om yang brahm vedanta viro varante parang pradhanam purusham tathanye veshodgate karam ishwarang vatasmai namo vigna vinashanayam bando pavan kumar khalban pavak gyanaghan jasu hridayagar basahiram sharichapadhar Om Shri Anjani Sutaya Vidmahi Vayuputraya Dhimahi Tanno Hanuman Prachodayat. Bole Shri Ganesh Bhagwan ki jai, Pavan Sutta Hanuman ki jai, Swaha Mata ki jai.
You have issues that arise from time to time, internet issues, and so forgive us for that. Now, as we begin, I want to start by introducing Mrs. Kamalwatti Ramsubeik, who is the president of the National Ramleela Council and who has a tremendous history in development of Hinduism and Ramleela in particular in Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome, Mrs. Ramsubeik.
Okay, thank you, Pandit Sitaram, everyone. Sometimes the Pandit God has a plan. In my university days in Canada, I switched from economics and sociology to English, and I did a practical course with my English courses, Shakespeare, etc., called Drama in Education. It was a drama course. It was performance, and we had to do practical courses, presentation also. People had come from England, from the Shakespeare Theatre, and it was an intensive 6-week course. And that has served me in good stead because I did it in a professional way other than acting and so on in school, in primary school and high school. And I really had a love for performance. I was told that I was able to learn lines and so on quickly. I wasn't very brave, but I used to be picked. And it's a love for the drama and performance. Why this love? And this will incorporate what I'm going to say about Ramleela also. We say the play of Sri Ram. And if we look at children's play. I'm just comparing how they dress up like mommy and daddy, and they play parts, and they imbibe, and if they see bad things, they imbibe that also. If they see mommy and daddy doing good things, they also imbibe that because of their innocence also. And therefore, I see Ramleela, the play of Ram, in this light. Discourses are wonderful. Sometimes for children, it gets over their heads. And sometimes they get restless because they prefer to see things being done, they prefer to be active. If they're trained in yoga and so on, they can sit for long periods and listen to discourses. So therefore, Ramleela is one aspect where we can draw Hindus, and some become Hindus because of the Ramleela. They may come in as non-Hindus, but the Ramleela appeals to them. I wouldn't go through the story of Ram, but we say the play of Ram. So when Ramleela is played out, what happens there? The players, they're dressed as different people. And if they're good at it, if they believe in it, they take on the role, and they take on the role of Ravan too. Many children do not like to play Ravan. Many parents do not allow their children to play Ravan.
Mrs. Ramsubeik, one of the things as a young person, what I found was when we did Ramleela in the temples, people found Ravan being the most fun to play because he is not constrained by all the rules and so
bring
that
nice and so on.
But before we go forward with further questions on Ramleela,
not only Ravan, not only Ravan, Rakshas and the whole.
Yes.
The paths of demons.
Yeah. It's sometimes the boys, sometimes they play it, but sometimes I found it in Sukshanti where I started until Ramleela. I remember mother coming to tell me, and eventually the boy did play Ravan. I won't call the name, and he did very well too. But the mommy wasn't too happy about it, and so you have to explain to them that it's a play, and what is the position of Ravan as opposed to Ram, and so on, and you have to coax them, and those same children, because they like the Ramleela, they continue playing until they got married and so on. And now some of them are bringing their children. So it goes down. Why we do Ramleela? As I said, there are benefits besides the discourse for
before
adults.
Before we go on to the benefits, Mr. Ramsubeik, let's just turn to Pandit
Balaram.
The
history?
Before we come to the history, we'll turn to Pandit Balaram.
Yes, he can ask me questions.
We look at the issue of the institution of Ramleela, Pandit Balaramji. How do you see, because I know you have been very involved together with Pandit Chandradev Dubey in Ramleela in Sangre Grande. I don't know if Pandit Balaram or Pandit Dubey, which one of you would want to speak a bit on the Ramleela in Sangre Grande?
Okay.
Pandits. Well, the Ramleela in Sangre Grande, it's usually a joint effort. It's amongst the Swaha Hindu College, the Swaha Tulsi Manas Primary School, and the Swaha Tulsi Manas Mandir. Usually it's a stage play, so it's not really in an open field. And it's narrated, and the actors and the actresses also have their dialogue rehearsed, and they also improvise at times. Now, unlike most play whereby you will find one person playing Ram, Lakshman, Sita, the major characters, our Ramleela is concluded on the third night, so it's 3 nights. And every night you will have someone playing the role of Sri Ram, someone playing the role of Lakshman, someone playing the role of Sita. So everyone becomes part of the experience. On the third night, we conclude with the burden of Ravan.
How long have you been involved in these Ramleela celebrations, Pandit Chandradev?
Well, I would say for the past 7 years or more, because from inception I was always part of the Tosimanas Mandar and my extension as well in the college. And my role really is simple. I mean, I do the opening prayer, the opening Hawan, and the closing prayer and the closing Hawan. At times I may interact with the actors and actresses.
Okay, great. I think we want to look at the development of Ramleela further. I'll ask Pandit Balaram from a more philosophical basis, how he sees the Ramleela itself in developing Hinduism. Pandit Balaram ji.
One institution that was left out on Chandra Devi, the Swaha preschool.
Preschool, yes.
Also part of the
Yes, the Swaha Tosimanas preschool.
Part, yeah. All right, so Ramleela has many aspects to it. You're asking about the philosophical aspect of it. Well, many who come do not really think about it or study it or care about it. They're simply more interested in the song, music, dance, and the play aspect. But what we do, which is different from, I don't know about others, I'm sure what we do, at the end of each play or at the end of Ramleela, we drive home the lessons from a philosophical point of view. So therefore, they leave it more than just song, music, and dance, more than a line, more than a whatever. So that is an important change in the performance of Ramleela, in Swaha Sani Grandi especially. I want to say that our Ramleela is perhaps the biggest. I know our Ravan is the tallest and most handsome, some say. And it started in an interesting way. We started in the temple. And on that day when we had Ramleela and we were supposed to burn Ravan, there was heavy rainfall. And so the Ravan collapsed. And from a standing position, he went to a sitting position. And it was an interesting thing to see that happen. So there's so many different aspects of the Ramleela that I can only share just this much for the time being.
Sure. I think when we talk of Ramleela particularly, Mrs. Ramsubeik, as president of the National Ramleela Council, what can you share with us about Ramleela throughout Trinidad and Tobago?
So we can find Ramleela throughout East, West, North, South. And the one in North, Pandimanide, was your group, Indigo Martin. And then we have along the East-West corridor, Sukshanti, Gandhi Park, Om Shakti, Tulsi Manas. We have Grandi. So that is along the East-West corridor. The proliferance of Ramleela is mainly, though, the majority of the groups are, and the oldest are in South Trinidad, like Cedar Hill, Avocat, Barrackpore. We also had one in Palmis. And then Central, some of the older ones too. We have Felicity, we have Pear Road, we have Brickfield. We had some in further North Trinidad, but they're not doing Ramleela again. And then there was one in Esmeralda.
Ramleela groups, Mrs. Ramsubeik, are they tied to temples? Are they temple-based or they are separate, or they are a combination of both?
Every single one is based in a temple, including the Swaha groups. Every single Ramleela group is temple-based. And that is where they use the temples to store their props, etc. They also do their pujas there. They are all temple goers. So they had that schooling before, and that love for Hinduism. You do have the players many players may not be temple goers, but the people who are in charge of the Ramleela, they're all temple goers. I can say that for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to bring in at this stage, because I myself don't know whether, in fact, for example, in Orlando, do we have examples of Ramleela groupings or Ramleela plays through the temples? And I want to introduce at this stage a young trainee Pandit. Many of you may know him. He is the son of Pandit, the late Pandit Paramanan Prasad. his mother Shakti. They are based now in Florida, in Orlando. And I want to welcome at this stage Pandit Avadhesh Prasad, Pandit in training. He is connected with the Sri Lakshminarayan Mandir in Orlando. Panditji, welcome.
And to the question of whether we have Ramleela celebration here in Orlando is we do in Chinmaya of Orlando. They have a celebration, but it's definitely not to the grand scale as in Trinidad. And it's a very special thing to hear you guys talk about that. It's really special.
But is it like it's not done in open fields? It's within the temple itself. The plays are done. How is it done in Orlando?
Well, I haven't witnessed this myself, only through videos. But from what I could gather, yes, they just go around the temple property. And
temple itself, yeah. Because Mrs. Ramsubeik, one of the issues that arises, you would recall that when Ramleela first started in Trinidad, it would have been all based in savannas.
Yeah, can I speak on that a little bit, Pandit? I've done some research on that.
Right. So let me give you the question before you speak, please.
Yeah.
So the question is, I want to get a confirmation as to when, because I know from Swaha's history, we moved Ramleela from the fields into temples and on stage presentations. So that we wanted to get some historical verification and confirmation from the Ramleela Council's work as to how they saw the development.
Yeah. The Ramleela that I examined, all the old ones, they started in the fields. Because why it started that way is because the land that persons were given and the ones that stayed back, Buchuni Singh is known as the father of Ramleela. That is Dow village. And it goes back to 1880. But from what I've researched, there was what you call improvised Ramleela, but I'm talking where they form like committees. And in this case, in Dow village, the estate helped them. And so they got land, and there were white, Negro, and other people in that first committee in Dow village. And they were given that land to do the Ramleela. For what reason? They found that there was discipline, like people who will get on and drink and so on. Even the white people in Cedar Hill, it was the same. I was told that why they start taking the pundits there is because when people saw the pundits, there was more discipline in the Ramleela. Cedar Hill told me that, right? And this is an old one too, dating back to about 1880, right? Long time ago by someone called Pandoi, right?
Can I just interject? Do we know, do we have records as to when the first Ramleela took place in Trinidad and Tobago? Is there any confirmation or even a suspicion? Because you're talking 1880s, we arrived in 1845. How many years before Ramleela started?
So that one they can't pinpoint because there are no records, but we have records from Buchuni Singh and the organized Ramleela. So what they're saying, and Raviji and those people do research, they have a lot of pictures where they did it in an improvised way. There was no fixed committee or anything like that. And I'm also thinking about my Nana. He did it the same way. He would read his Ramayana, and then people will dress up and come around. And many places in India still do it like that. We've seen it in Ayodhya upstairs, where they read the Ramayana, people dress up as characters and they just sit on stage. So, but what happened to is just like slavery, people thought they were making too much noise and it was unruly. And that is why they encouraged the pundits to work with the groups. And then they got their land. The land was their land. It was not the only people who got public land.
Are you suggesting that the Ramleelas initially did not have the involvement of pundits? It was separate people who did Ramleela?
From the info I got from the old Ramleela, they did not. And Cedar Hill was telling me too that Pandit Charamjit or something like that, he was the first one who went down. Because we met that too, Pandit. When I went into the council, we used to move around. And when the Ramleela was done, there was a lot of on the periphery. There wasn't too much control, but they had police and so on. And people used to drink. They used to drink and so on. We saw that ourselves, Swaha people. But when we were very active in the council, we made sure that we go around and we send people also, and they stopped. They stopped that.
I think it's very interesting, but we need to take a break at this stage. We'll take a break and return as we continue our conversation on Ramleela development in Trinidad and Tobago. Stay with us.
Okay, Pandit.
Join us as we explore contemporary issues facing societies worldwide. Interviews and discussions featuring local and international experts. You can participate in our live call-in segments, a program of the board of SWAHA.
Join live every Tuesday evening at 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and prime time at 7 p.m.
You're viewing the Hindu Perspective on IETV, coming to you from Trinidad and Tobago. And today we have the president of the Ramleela Council, Mrs. Ramsubeik, talking to us about Ramleela, and also Pandit Chandradev Dubey from Sangre Grande, and youthful Pandit Awadhesh Prasad in Orlando. As usual, we have our senior Pandit Balaram presiding over the proceedings. We are discussing Ramleela, and Mrs. Ramsubeik was making the point about the involvement of Ramleela, of Pandits in Ramleela, to bring some sort of discipline to the proceedings. Mrs. Ramsubeik.
Yes, so now we have Pandits. They have different roles. They're the ones really who guide us. We may not be very versed in the scriptures. Pandit Gyandev, even though I was in Pandit Paramanand's temple for a long time, he used to tell me to refer to Pandit Gyandev whenever I was doing my research for the TV or Ramleela. So I had given him the name. I don't know if he knows that. I call him the walking encyclopedia. To me, he knew everything about the scriptures. So the Pandits, from days gone by, played, I would say, the major role. Swaha, with a bit of openness, which is very good too, because what we're doing, Swaha is developing people in all aspects of Hinduism, and therefore allowing them to organize things. Like, for instance, Pandit Paramanand, he almost left me with the Ramleela. And when I do the scripts, he just used to oversight it, because I read it in English translation. And with the Chaupai and so on, the Pandits are always there to do the pujas. So it's a very disciplined Ramleela for us. It's pretty disciplined. And it's becoming like that in the field groups also. There is a lot of improvement. I can say that from what we
I've noticed too with the development of stage Ramleela that we developed, Swaha in particular, meaning to centralize it in temples, use more production. I'm sure, Mr. Ramsubeik, you may also remember we had brought in one or two experts from India. Pandit Brahman was involved in that to help with creating these props and also things that at that time. One of the changes I've seen is that even in the street Ramleela, as it were, or the Maidan, the savannas, you are now seeing stages being put up there.
Yeah.
Where some of the action is enacted to bring in that element also. Is that something that's developing?
Yes, I used to move around to St. John and all those groups that do Ramleela on the Maidan, and even in those days, they had a central stage. And sometimes that is the stage they will put Sri Ram and Lakshman and Sita and so on. So I noted that central stage in some of the groups, not all. St. John was one for many years now, over 20 years. So they did have a stage. And now I'm noticing also, remember we work together and they move around, and sometimes some of them come and they do, they dance with the Ramleela and Sukshanti. There is a lot of dialogue now, and we are the ones who introduce dialogue. We train the children, we go through the Ramayana, we let them sit sometime a month before. This is not done in the field group. And they learn, and we also teach them what is in the Ramayana, or where it comes and how it's related to other parts and things like that. I've seen that in many of the groups now where they are using dialogue, because what I notice, and as a teacher too, that some of the children, and this is not putting the Ramleela down, that was their style, that sometimes they're given a part and they say, okay, you go there, you do as if you're talking to that one, and the narration takes place. And then sometimes what happened, some of them may not know the Ramayana story at all, because they're doing bits and pieces. So it's very good for the children to know the Ramayana, so they know where they fit in, what role they play in, and who else is in that role, and where that role comes in. And this is some of the things that we do in the stage Ramleela, because it's more, I would say, fine-tuned. The field Ramleela is, yes, beautiful with the music and the singing and the costume and the props and the Ramleela dance. It's really beautiful. People come from abroad and they like it because it's something different. I think in India, they were giving me ratio, and the higher ratio was the stage Ramleela. And the field Ramleela, they did have some. This is statistics that I got. They did have field, but sometimes on the road. You will know, Pandit, you were there for a while, right? But there is quite a bit of stage Ramleela, and the people who come here to train us, they're in movies, and they do stage Ramleela, and we get training from them, like makeup and things like that, costuming, quite a bit of that, which is very important.
At this stage, I want to invite Pandit Balaram to make his inputs on the whole concept and the development of Ramleela before we continue. Pandit Balaram, any areas you wanted?
Thank you, Ms. Ramsubeik. Tell us about the funding.
Okay, so the funding,
both state and otherwise.
Yeah.
Adequate, is it not?
So
being done from a council point of view.
Yeah. Well, like many Indian things, but let me give you a statistics on what grounds we will fight this time. The Sad Balkaran Singh, Dr. Sad Balkaran Singh, he wrote a book, and after Carnival, Ramleela is the biggest, 200,000 he counted. He went around, 200,000 audience. Sad Balkaran Singh wrote a book on Ramleela. Yeah. 200,000. So it's right after Carnival in terms of festival. Also, in 2005, UNESCO recognized Ramleela as a World Heritage. We do fight on those grounds, and we keep fighting for better funding. The fighting hasn't stopped. We have new people now in the ministry, and on Saturday, we ask people to bring in their budgets. So because they always say they get funding, Pandit, you know that, I told you that, they get funding at a certain time, and then the funding is finished. And they say, well, we bring our things late. That may not be true, but they have to give us some sort of answer. So now we're going to make sure on this Saturday, we collecting all the budgets. So emails were sent to the groups. Make sure you bring your budgets early, so they will not have an excuse to say that we're bringing our budgets late, that their funding is finished.
Historically, last year, I mean, COVID, we would have a lot of issues arising. But what has been the general funding levels that the National Ramleela Council has gotten from government for Ramleela?
Okay. Since I've been in the council since 2000, in terms of lump sum, we had only gotten like twice. When Botiwari was there, that was 2012, that was the 50th independence anniversary. He passed $1 million, and everybody really did the Ramleela, and they decorate and We had a lunch, whatever. It was big. That was the only time. Another time we were given by Miss Brown like 30,000 lump sum. But
for for the whole of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, and when we send it in, I make a spreadsheet from all the so it takes some hours too because I'm not into statistics, and you have 25 budgets, and you got to go through all the items and all the totals and which group it is and where they're located, and then we add up, and very often we ask for over 400 or over 300,000. What they do though, when the application go in, and sometimes I say I'm wasting my time to stay up 3-4 hours to do statistics, they call the groups individually and they give them a check. Now, some people get from 5, 15, 20. You never get more than that. And sometimes, but the field groups, who I would say put in more because of their elaborate decoration and so on, props. What they do, they have, right now, some of them have had like 3 veggie queues. The community still support them. I go to some of their function and I hear names from $50, $10. The community, like when people used to go with Taria, the junior singer and so on, and that happened in Guyana too, and ask for money for whatever they having, like Ramleela and so on, Christian Leela also. We have several Christian Leela groups also. And so they do a lot of their fundraising because that pittance. We had several meetings with the new government too. We had several meetings with them and we discussed all that, and we had a wide cross-section of people from various groups, SWAHA groups, and also the other groups about funding and other issues. But we have not stopped there, but we do it as a body. We don't do it as a single person, and that is a good thing also. So the next thing we have to do now is go on the air. Because we in Ramleela, we didn't want to make fuss, but the next thing we have to do is go on the radio and TV, etc. But first of all, we're going to ask for a meeting again. We want the budgets, and we're going to go in with the budgets. We have all the board members, and we will have to lobby for more funding, because I know it's ridiculous, especially the amount of work and the amount of people who attend and enjoy it. And it's something religious, of course, but people enjoy it as a festival.
From what you're saying, the reality is one carnival fete gets more money than all the Ramleela.
Than all the Ramleela groups, yes.
And I think it's something that we need to agitate for, regardless of which government is in power, is an issue that has to be dealt with.
Yes.
Now, do you have any figures? Does Ramleela bring in income?
You mean the council itself?
No, I mean the hosting. One of the arguments about carnival is that carnival brings income to the country.
Okay, right? So let me speak about that, Pandit. You are
income to Trinidad and Tobago. Does it or does it not?
It brings income. It brings income because the Ramleela encompasses a plethora of skills. So you have artists, you have musicians, you have tassa players, you have 10 people, you have chair. We have put in all of that, Pandit. When I make my thing, I put in all of that, how much it affects the jobs and the economy and so on. Is every single skill Ramleela use. They rent tents, they rent galvanized, and everything you could think about. They buy a lot of food to give the players and things. They buy clothes, the whole plethora of whatever you can sell. All that is utilized in Ramleela. So those are economic benefits. Those are all economic benefits. All that we have put in Pandit. All that we put in. How a lot of other people gain, and not only the Ramleela, the people who do the Ramleela, but people who have businesses and things like that. The mic man also gains, the hardware, everybody, because they utilize everything, plus food, drinks, all those things. But we're going to do it again, Pandit. We do it all the time. We're going to do it again. Because as I said, they have different people there in the Ministry of Culture. The person who was in charge and who's high up is stage funded. And don't let me go further than that. Don't let me go
I
further.
don't want to call names. I mean, we're not in a position. I look at things institutionally.
Institutional.
Ramleela is a national event. We need to
Yes.
continue building it.
Yes.
You know, in Trinidad and Tobago, there is always how should I put it? There's a penchant for
Yes.
people to try discrimination.
Yes.
Before I do that, I believe that the statement of our national anthem, every creed and race
must find an equal place. Yes.
It's not a statement of fact, it is a statement of aspiration.
Yes.
And if we feel our function, the Ramleela, which is a national event that builds society, is not being funded adequately, then we can't expect someone else to agitate for it.
Yeah.
We need to get together and agitate for it. And in that regard, I mean, I want to publicly state in my capacity as Managing Director of IETV that in whichever way we can assist in building Ramleela and creating awareness of what takes place and building this series of events, will be open to conversation and to discussion.
Should I tell you about some other important development with the Ramleela?
Before we go there, let's finish the issue of funding, because it's one thing that always comes up. And I would ask Mr. Balaram if there's anything else he wants to add on this issue before we go
on
forward.
the funding. Yes.
No, that's okay. Come move on.
Can I say something now? Pandit Balaram, you were a school principal. I retired early, but do you know that Mr. Gibbon is in a committee that they work with us because they're from creative arts, right? And he's writing a book which includes Ramleela and all the other festivals, because that is what they did in creative arts festivals. And I think he's the one who included the Ramleela. So what Ramleela in the Cape and the other one, CSEC, both you have a component of performance where you can do questions on performance. And you can also, the students can also write on Ramleela in the CSEC and Cape. I'm not too familiar with those tests. I was at GCJs and all that. So they can answer questions. So children who involved in the Ramleela, what he told me also, we were speaking about Guyana. Is Guyana everything, somebody killed the culture and the religion. Now they're reviving it, right? A lot of the culture had gone through. I don't have to call name, I'm sure you know about the people. And what they're doing now, the Guyanese students who do this aspect, the Cape and so on, they come here. They come here to look at Ramleela and the Bajan students. So we thinking of doing, we went Guyana already, we did outreach in about 8 areas. We went twice, 2015 and 2009 or something. We will go again, and Barbados also, we will go there to do some Ramleelas. They could say, yeah, they come here and they see the Ramleela so they could answer questions on those aspects. And what they do when they come, Mr. Gibbon there, the creative arts is not there, the student is there now. They hire a bus and they take me with them because they feel more comfortable if I'm there with them and I go with the students too. So I have done that for many, many years to go around with the creative arts students.
So Ramsubeik, coming back to the issue of
funding.
So we have spoken a bit about funding in relation to government funding, state funding.
Yes.
You have identified that many of the groups, in fact, raise funds from within their communities, their own communities, in order to run the Ramleela.
Yes.
My director is telling me we need to take a break. We'll take a break, and when we return, I will continue my point. This is
and you can help us with that too. Yes, thank you.
Join us as we explore contemporary issues facing societies worldwide. Interviews and discussions featuring local and international experts. You can participate in our live call-in segments, a program of the board of SWAHA.
Join live every Tuesday evening at 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and prime time at 7 p.m.
You are viewing the Hindu perspective. We have with us Pandit Chandradev Dubey from Sangre Grande, Trinidad, Pandit Avedhesh Prasad, trainee Pandit in Orlando, Pandit Balaram, and Mrs. Kamalwatti Ramsubeik, President of the National Ramleela Council. At this point, we are continuing our conversation on Ramleela, and we were discussing before the break the issue of funding. There is the persistent belief, and I am of the view, rightly so, that state funding needs to be sourced with more seriousness for Ramleela. And it's important that the community itself, that the Ramleela Council and all involved in Ramleela make a case strong enough that's not able to be defeated, as it were, or discounted in building a case for further funding from government. That is a work in progress. Ramleela has survived and grown to a great extent because of funding done through the community itself. And that's the point where we are at. And I want to ask Mrs. Ramsubeik directly to address all the businesses and all those who may be interested in assisting the development of Ramleela out here, looking at our program. What can they do? How can they get involved in assisting in developing Ramleela?
Okay, so can I answer you that briefly? Pandit, when I joined the Ramleela, we used to, because we were doing like a magazine, we were doing the Pioneers Award and so on. And when we sent to businesses and government institutions, some I like TSTT and so on, a lot of them mark it down as they don't fund anything religious. So they sort of that was one of the setback. They saw the Ramleela as religious, the private businesses. And so that was a setback. So I am going with you that we do a big lobby where everybody could sign, or a whole set of us go in. We have to deal with government. They have to give us our dues also, like they give to Carnival and Curry Festa and all those other things. Yeah, but those institutions, they see it as religious, and that was the first thing. And all those people were there, Viraj and all the Swaha people you used to lobby to, and this was the reply we used to get, that is religious. And
they are not supporting religious programs.
Yeah, they weren't given any whatever you call it, funding to religious. Yeah, we probably have all those correspondence.
So why not cultural? It's a cultural program.
Yes, it
Less
is.
culture.
Yeah, but Pandit, you know, when they don't want to give, they will come up with anything.
Yeah, and, but by accepting their reason, I mean, we agree with them.
We didn't accept it. We couldn't. We wrote them several times. We keep writing businesses several because we were doing a magazine and now we're doing a book too. So we need funding for the book. I'm working on a book for 35 groups. So we'll need funding for that also. But this is the reply that we got. We still have all those letters. Well, Mrs. Puran used to collect them. Yeah, she was the secretary. And it was ridiculous, but that is the kind of excuse. And so what we'll say, we're going to boycott you. TSTT was one of them, you know, and they always fund all kinds of things, you know.
I think an important point is to promote it as cultural.
Yes.
And if we continue getting responses like that, I think it's something we need to highlight.
Yes.
Right, because then I would ask a question. I want to see if they support Corpus Christi. It's a Christian festival.
Yeah.
Are they spending money on that? Are they spending money on Christmas? It's Christian. So then why can't you spend money on Hindus? These are serious. If you want to talk religion, then come Eid. Is it that the STT doesn't do an ad? These are serious questions to answer. Ramleela is a festival of Trinidad and Tobago.
It's a festival.
Maybe we have been quiet for too long with some of these issues and we've not ventilated it nationally. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people get away with things because nobody questions it. Huh? And it's time that we start raising some of these issues and finding companies, not just corporates. So corporates is one issue. What about you have those companies that are within the community itself that will support these projects. We also have to make sure we reach out to those companies.
The local businesses and so on, they support because they live and they do the business around. They support their groups, but I'm talking about going nationally through the council. But the local people, they do support the groups. That is how the Ramleela has lasted, because they do some selling like VeggieQ and so on.
I think what you're pointing out there is a mindset that exists that has to be changed, and it wouldn't change by remaining silent on it, but by highlighting it. And where we see anomalies, or if you want the word hypocrisy, we should point it out.
Yes.
Vociferously, not with any anger or arrogance, but let's be there, right? We all live here, we all benefit from various services, and Ramleela is a national event that builds culture, that builds values, that helps young people. There are so many challenges with young people now, trying to get young people involved in wholesome activities. I think these are examples of events that should be supported. And where there are large corporates that refuse to support events like this, nothing personal, we need to call it out.
We have to boycott them.
I'm not saying boycott them, I'm saying let's call it out so people are aware this is happening. And where it goes from there, we decide later on. Because the moment you start talking boycott, people think you're some fringe group and you're against people. It's nothing like that. We are looking at fairness and parity. You know, we're saying well, it's good for the gander, good for the goose, right? Every community in Trinidad and Tobago should be entitled to support for its national events that help build Trinidad and Tobago. Panibaram.
Yes, what I'm seeing here, based on what you're saying, right? There's a need for a legal side, a component of the Ramleela Council.
Yes, okay.
That's how this country operates. Nobody takes any action or anything until you get a legal letter.
Yes.
The discrimination or whatever.
Right.
So I'm suggesting look into it.
Yes, good point, Pandit. And Vinda Maharaj helped us with the incorporation. And he's our god brother, and I know he knows about the Ramleela, and he's one we can turn to. He's one we can. That's Vinda Maharaj.
Okay,
yes.
Go back to the letter of incorporation.
Yeah.
Did it say that Ramleela Council is a religious group or a cultural group?
No, it didn't state anything like that about it. It didn't use the word religion or cultural. It just says National Ramleela Council.
Sometimes in these corporate bodies, a letter comes on somebody's desk, and with their own biases and their own thinking, they just give a response.
Yeah.
You do not challenge it. It doesn't go beyond that person's desk. And that's something as a community, you know, and it's not intended, again, we're not trying to be, you know, argumentative or difficult, but we just want to ensure that you get what is due, what is right. And so the idea of legal representation, in fact, one of the things we are working on now is an entire Hindu resource center.
Yes.
A resource base. So any grouping, any community, any group that wants to access those resources, they can communicate, lawyers, doctors, what have you, as we create this sort of platform through which we can talk to each other.
Wonderful.
Perspective. We are talking about Ramleela, and one of the challenges in building such a national event as Ramleela that is positive, that it helps in the community development, is the lack of funding, one, from government sources, which I believe we should address. On the corporate side, as Pandit Baram is suggesting, that should be addressed. And then from within the community itself, we need to marshal resources more and build large Ramleela groupings and have, you know, there's a saying, success has many fathers, right? As it or many mothers. Once you have good Ramleelas running, you would find you're able to attract more and more support. I don't know if there's anything else, Pandit Baram, you wish to.
Yeah, Mr. Ramsubeik, we shouldn't come alive we should not only come alive when Ramleela around the corner. It should be an year-round activity, right? Sensitization, letting people know, and whatever, what plans we have, and so on.
So Pandit Baran, during the COVID, we have done that. We had Zoom, we had programs on TV. We continue with the program even though we have COVID. And another issue is this: we had applied for 5 acres of land, and our teacher did the plan many years ago. Dr. Sad Balkaran I did a draft proposal, and then he fine-tuned it with a business plan. Previous government, Pandit say don't talk, but I have to talk about it, had announced it publicly. It was in the newspapers, etc. in 2014. We had applied since 2013 or before, and we were given, we paid for survey and so on in Brechin Castle. And when the new government took over, they froze everything. So we were ready, and what that site was going to do, besides a heritage site, museum, etc., we were going to create work with craft and clothing and couture and all those things, so people could have made the same things they use in Ramleela and they make for Ramleela. It would have been a site also for jobs for such people. There is a guy in Gwarkar who is in charge of the Ramleela group there, and Christian Leela, who does murtis. And that was frozen by this government. So that is something we have to take up again, Pandit.
What does frozen mean? If the land was given, the process has to continue. I mean,
we did
done. What have you
allocated? We didn't get any legal document. It was in the papers, and it went to cabinet also.
Do you have a note saying that?
Yes, it went to cabinet also.
Confirmed cabinet note?
Yes, we didn't get that. But when
it's easy to say these things, but you need again, as Pandit Baran, to get legal assistance.
Pandit, you know, and you're more into those things. If a prime minister on a Diwali night in 2014 announced it, and it was in all the papers, what do you say about that?
That doesn't make it legal.
We got our receipt for the survey and everything.
It has to be done.
Yeah.
Unless the land was so, I mean, that's outside the scope of the program, really. If you had a confirmed cabinet note, you were told to do the survey, you have all that in writing, right? The land was allocated, then it should be easily, if not easily, you can follow up, right?
Yeah.
There are the Ministry of Agriculture is there. You can land on surveys.
Yes.
It should be followed up. There is still time. Yeah.
Yes.
Once documents exist. So that is a legal matter that I think, as Pandit Baran is suggesting, the council needs to take up further. That in the context of this program, we can't really speculate on, because we have no real information so to do. But sometimes, with due respect to prime ministers of all parties or whatever, politicians may say something, but unless it is backed up and done, it doesn't mean anything.
In addition to the legal aspect, right, you need to have some media backing. And I heard you say a while ago, well, you're going to put in money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
ITV.
We get in some.
That's another feather in your cap, Ms. Ramsubeik.
Yeah.
We have agreed to the hosting of this program, right?
Yeah.
Speaking in my capacity as managing director of IETV. So if you come to us, we have a newsroom. If there are issues that need to be ventilated for any community, we are willing to do it. Right. But we are not going to go off on a limb as anybody else without a clear indication that something is valid. So we're not a tabloid type TV station. So
doors are being opened to you this evening.
Yes.
Doors
are being opened to you, and there is someone who is working on the Guardian too. There is someone who is working in the Guardian.
All arms in the media.
Right.
We're going to use the media.
The thing is, media can highlight your challenges, media can highlight your issues, but if you're looking at a legal issue, if you're saying land was given, and
Yes.
there's proof that land was given, that could be found,
Yeah.
right? Then it may be delayed, but not denied, right? And there are arms of government now that you can approach, if it hasn't been done over the last 2-3 years, sometimes on the eve of elections, people say things are said, but it has the follow-up being done. I am not in a position on this program at this point to say yes or no either. So I think on the issue of the land, we should move on, because we are not can't say anything definitive on the issue of seeking further funding. You need to make the Ramleela Council and everybody involved in Ramleela needs to make a greater case for the promotion of Ramleela. And in terms of the use of media, I should share with you, I don't know if you're all aware of it, there is the Satya Drishti Cultural Organization. They have done Ramleela productions on video. In fact, we have aired them at concessional cost to create greater awareness of it. So more value can be added, more exposure can be given to Ramleela through opportunities like these, where productions like these are done. There may be other groups who have done it, and it can be promoted.
Yeah.
We are discussing Ramleela. What other issues, Mrs. Ramsubeik? We are coming close to the end of the segment on Ramleela. Anything else you want to add at this stage?
No, Pandit, the training, we looking forward to that training. If any training is going to start, we normally get training from people from India and local people, Sad Balkaran Sting and creative arts, and so on. So we continue to do training, but yes, and we will pursue. We do have receipts and so on where they survey the 5 acres for us, and they charge us for the survey. And what happened? It wasn't going to go through the government.
Just follow up on that. You need to follow up on that.
Yeah. They had a committee, not the government.
One of the suggestions I want to make to you as we wrap up this segment is, as Pandit Bharat mentioned, Ramleela shouldn't only be a thing for Navratam. Can you find a way to get Ramleela into the schools?
Yes, that was one of the discussion we had, yes.
In RI instruction, these are areas where you can bring Ramleela alive. Just a suggestion. I mean, it may be considered already. But thank you very much, Mrs. Ramsubeik, for joining us today to ventilate these ideas. You're looking at the Hindu perspective, and we want to switch gears a bit. We have 2 Pandits present with us, Pandit Chandradev Dubey, as I mentioned, who we are trying to look at continuity. We're looking at continuity going forward and how Pandits continue to evolve and develop. Pandit Chandradev Dubey, his father was Pandit Dinanath Dubey from Sangri Grandi. He is a surveyor, a law clerk, evaluator, and a Pandit attached to Tulsi Manas Mandir. Panditji, we want you to share with us now your own thoughts as a Pandit, practicing as a Pandit and performing other duties. You are not, as you would say, a full-time Pandit. How do you mesh these roles?
Pandit Mahadev. Well, as a Pandit, you learn, experience, and discover something new every day. Of course, the focus is to give more priority to your culture, Panditai, and try to fit in your work life, because you must have a work life on the side. Being a Pandit not only means you must be versed in the ritual aspect, the cultural aspect, the spiritual aspect, the astrological aspect, the scriptures, but you must also be able to mediate in any situation, dealing with family issues, social issues, give advice and counseling, and especially now, special emphasis on mental health.
I see. Thank you very much, Pandit Chandradev ji. Now we have Pandit Vadhesh Prasad, who is the son of Pandit Paramaran Prasad, who is deceased, the founder of Swaha Sukh Shanti. In fact, those of you who listen to Swaha programs, the Swaha song itself was sung by him, that is used all the time. Pandit Avadhesh, he is based in Orlando with his mom. Now he's just 16 years old. And one of the fascinating things for me looking forward is, why does a Pandit Awadhesh want to be a Pandit? Pandit Awadhesh, how would you answer that if I ask you, why do you want to be a Pandit?
Well, so pundits are like I'll describe them as the defender of Dharma, and we have to help others achieve their own Dharma and guide them, whether it's through pujas, through uh, their patras, whatever they want. We have to guide them.
So basically, you've gotten involved in Panditai as a way of helping others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one of these things you come from is interesting. Tell us a bit about your lineage on your father and mother side.
So my father's side, well, you're his brother, and it goes unbroken generations, from Pandit Hari Prasad and so on, and as the viewers know, like there's a big base in Trinidad that you guys built. And then on my mother's side, uh, my nana's father was Pandit S1E12 of the Londonville Temple, and the Londonville Temple is still going.
That's Londonville Temple in Trinidad. Yes.
Yeah, in Trinidad.
So you feel, okay, was there ever any question about you deciding to do Panditai in your mind? Or it was just natural?
No, not really. I mean, there was some pressure to do Panditai, but uh, I want to do it because it is a good outlet to have a platform to speak.
Mm-hmm. Anything you want to share with other young men like yourself who come from Pandit backgrounds, in terms of Panditai? Any idea, any advice, any suggestions you want to make to them?
Yeah, it's as long as you're living a good life, then that's like the minimum requirement to just do the best to your ability. Even if you can't become a full pundit, it's alright to sometimes prioritize your work, your job, or your school. But as long as you have that foundation of Panditai and doing good.
Well, let me thank you very much. We would be highlighting Pandit Awadhesh and other young Pandits from around the world, in particular connected with Swaha, as they continue their process of development. We want to wish you all the best, and we pray that success comes your way.
Thank you.
I want to, as at this stage, as we come to the end of our program, we are out of time. I want to ask Pandit Balram, our senior most Pandit, for his comments, his words as we conclude. Pandit Balramji.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful program. It's a pleasure listening to Awadhesh and also Pandit Chandradev, and to hear the report of the Ramleela Council President, Ms. Ramsubeik. And she has her work cut out for her, and we pray that God will give her the strength to do what is best. And by many good work, keep it up.
All right, you're viewing the Hindu perspective. Let me thank everybody who joined us, particularly Pandit Chandradev, Pandit Awadhesh, and Mrs. Ramsubeik, as we had our program Hindu Perspective today. Until next time, Sitaram, Namaste.